Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Joomla Shack conference. Unfortunately, this was meant to be the weekend of the big Joomla World Conference in London, and unfortunately that didn't happen. But I hope that by holding an online event over the next 3 days, we'll be able to at least fill in a little bit of that space. I'm Steve Burge, and I'm going to be your host for this event. I work here at Joomla Shack, and I'm delighted to welcome Parth for first presentation. Parth is the co-founder of Tech Joomla, and their team produced some excellent Joomla extensions, including JGive for donations and Shika for a learning management system. Parth is based in Pune, India, and his presentation today is called "You Built This with Joomla." No way. And after Parth's presentation, we'll hopefully have some time for some questions at the end. If you post any questions in the chat as we go along, I'll make sure to gather them all together and ask them to Parth at the end of the session. So Parth, if you're ready, I'm going to hand over to you, and welcome to the Joomla Shack conference.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Steve. We're ready to go. So welcome everyone, and thank you for having me here. And it's a pleasure to get the conference started. So no keynotes this time, now since it's not a real conference, but a pleasure to get this started. So I'm going to be talking about, as you can see on the screen, wow, you built that with Joomla. So we have been doing Joomla for a long time, and we use Joomla for some non-conventional use cases. And while we do a lot of typical websites and web applications with Joomla, we've also done some really cool stuff with it. And we thought we'll take this opportunity to showcase some of that and show off the power of Joomla and what can be done with it. So I'll just start by just some introductions and a little bit about myself. So like Steve said, I'm a co-founder at Tech Joomla. I also run a couple of companies called Take Technologies, which is the parent company really of Tech Joomla, and another small division called App Carvers, where we do mobile apps. In the Joomla community, I'm pretty active in the Joomla user group in Pune, and I'm also part of organizing Joomla Day India. And I've been working with Joomla since the Mambo days. So just a little bit about Takedy. So we started back in 2006. This is our core purpose. We like to be a catalyst for societal transformation by empowering organizations and individuals with technology. So this is what really drives us, and everything we do here is towards that purpose. So as I said, we were founded back in 2006. We have had an open source based focused growth strategy, which has helped us get a worldwide client base. Back here in India, we are India's top Joomla based development company, and we have some complex projects to our name. And everything we do, we try and do with a product first approach. Having done a lot of product development ourselves with Joomla based products, as well as we have a few cloud based products. Even the projects we deliver, we try to take a product first approach with the client work we do. So that's kind of what we feel is a differentiator for us. So as far as the team goes, we have 50 odd people here of different backgrounds, from front end and back end development to product developers, analysts, UI, UX. Most of the team has experience of 4 to 8 years. A lot of people are senior architects with 12 plus years experience. So that's a quick brief on the team. This is what we do. We do a lot of UI, UX, web applications, portals, API development. We recently delved into big data analytics and business intelligence as well. And recently we have been doing some very interesting hybrids where Joomla is used on the back end, and we are doing front ends, which are progressive web apps, where we use JavaScript quite a bit. So in fact, my partner Ashwin is going to be talking next. And that session, if you're looking at using Joomla with something like Angular or React, that's a session you should attend. So I'll kind of skip this. This presentation will be online. This is just a quick look at what technologies we deal with. Joomla is a lot of the work we do. PHP also makes up a lot of it. But now around 30-40% of the work is happening around a JavaScript-based stack. And we are trying to kind of balance out the PHP-based work with a more modern stack as well. So this is Tech Joomla. Steve already introduced some of our products like Shika and JGive. We have quite a few more Joomla-based native Joomla extensions like JTicketing, which is an event management extension, Quick to Cut, which is a multi-vendor e-commerce system, Social Ads, which is web advertising. You can all check them out on techjoomla.com. At AppCurvers, this is mainly a division where we focus mainly on mobile applications and modern web applications. A lot of products there as well that do work with Joomla. And here we use COM API, which is our REST API extension, which allows you to add APIs to Joomla. So hopefully once Joomla 4 comes, we won't need that anymore. But till that's here, you can use COM API to get web services. So as I said, we have open source at our core. So we do a lot of open source contributions to Joomla as well as projects that we use. And we have quite a big GitHub repository at TechD and TechJoomla. We have some 35, 40 odd horizontal extensions, as we call them, which are used to build a lot of our Joomla stuff. So coming to today's session, as I said, we'll mainly be going to be talking about, I'll be looking at 2 or 3 big case studies, which are different extensions used with Joomla. We'll start with a really massive website built with Joomla and then move on to some more interesting applications built with Joomla. So let's start with the first one. So here I'm going to be talking about a multilingual website which was built for the Indian government, which is 17 odd languages. India, as you know, has a lot of official languages, and typically government websites have to support all that. And Joomla, as we know, is probably the only CMS that does multilingual natively. And we recently got awarded this contract to rebuild the Aadhaar website. And some interesting stats about this is that it serves approximately 50 million hits monthly. And the scaling of that is also very interesting. So this is the first one that we'll be talking about. So let's get into that one. So here's some quick stats. So as I said, 17 languages. India is a country which is almost like Europe as a country. We have more languages though. And 17 is the official number. The number of actual languages goes much higher. They say that in India, if you go 20, 25 kilometers, the language changes. At least the dialect changes. So a lot of diversity here, and a government website needs to cater to at least some of that. And that's why languages are extremely important. Like I said, one of the busiest Joomla sites in the world, probably, definitely one of the busiest in India, serving some 50 million hits a month. A lot of the interesting pieces here was, this was one of the biggest government contracts we've done, which is very complicated because Aadhaar, if you do not know about that, that's like India's unique identity project. It is very unique in the sense that this is the first time something of this scale has been implemented in a country of this size. And I'll share some very interesting stats around that. So approximately 1.25 billion Indians actually have an Aadhaar number. And you can imagine the kind of volume this website drives because of the huge user base it has. So what was very interesting is that this was originally a website that was already built in Joomla by a big corporation. And recently they needed to revamp the website and make it mobile first. So this was originally built probably 6 or 7 years back. It was Joomla 3 and upgraded, but it was basically built in a very different way. Probably built before Joomla Fields came, which meant that there was a lot of complexity where it should not have been. And we had to really use Joomla CMS's features very creatively to ensure that we could make it easy for the users. I'm not sure how many of you guys have worked with government, but one of the key challenges in government is sometimes that you have to deal with a lot of bureaucracy, and there are a lot of different stakeholders. And in this game where each department wants to make sure that their stuff goes on the homepage or their stuff keeps coming up on the top, the end user, in this case the citizen, kind of ends up getting second, third, tertiary kind of treatment. So what was very critical here was balancing the bureaucracy, balancing the different kinds of user needs that were internal to the government, and making sure that we could deliver something that was really beautiful and made it easy for the user to actually use. So in terms of content, I don't think it has a lot of content. We are looking at approximately 100,000 odd pages, but of course that's in 17 languages, so that scales very quickly. But in terms of content, there wasn't a huge amount of content, but the types of content were quite a bit. So there were some really interesting challenges in here. So the way we started with this was, and when we got this came in as just, we have a Joomla website, we just needed to be responsive. So that was actually the brief that we were given when we were asked to code for the project. And this being government, you don't get access to code before you code, so you have to actually code blind and assume that we probably have to rebuild it. So we went ahead and we got awarded. When we actually opened the box, we realized that it was going to be something really interesting and something much more than what we had bargained for. So what we found out inside was this website was having 12 different templates, where ideally that shouldn't have been there. There were some 12 to 15 custom extensions there, each for managing a content type. And there was a lot of duplication of content being done. A lot of pages, I think the website had gone through many hands over the years, and there was a lot of mess to manage. So the way we decided to start was, as a completely fresh start, keep the user at front and let the user's needs and the information architecture drive the design and eventually the CMS architecture. So this is how we started out. One of the key things that came out of the design process, obviously the objectives that we had was that initially the website, what we found is that it was really hard to find the information that the user wanted. This is very common with a lot of government websites. They end up being extremely busy and not very user friendly. So one of the key things we wanted to achieve was that if a user came in with some intent, he should be able to quickly find the information they wanted. That need and that the information is brought up at the right time, and ensuring a smooth performance of navigation and the website across devices. So these were key considerations. And a lot of the time that we had to spend went in actually digging through the content and trying to find out, because the sitemap they had didn't make a lot of sense. And we had to actually redo the entire information architecture. So what we came out with, so our UX team came out with something like this, where because the citizen was very important, we basically decided that this piece, which is the My Aadhaar piece, was the most important, and that should be given the most importance. Whereas the ecosystem, people who help with the Aadhaar enrollment, who help with the authentication, who are the partners, as well as about UIDAI, which is the body that governs Aadhaar, could be given comparatively less importance. But at the same time, like I said, giving something that's core to the government less importance doesn't really fly well. So it had to stay as a a top level information architecture, that all these pieces had to stay on the top. But visually, we made sure that the citizen got more value. So digging in a little deeper, what was demanded by the design team was that we need to have these small cards. So the idea was that everything that the user needs, we should, and this was a mobile first design approach. So what we wanted to do is that the entire sitemap, we wanted to render on the mobile device as a landing page. So what was very interesting, and I'll just switch to the website to show you that, as to how this was designed, is that typically what ends up happening is that when you have long submenus, and I'll just quickly switch to show you this. Can you see the UIDI website? Steve, can you confirm I'm on the right screen?
Yeah, it looks great. We can see it.
Yeah. So what is unique here and this is going to be interesting for those who know Joomla. So this is a typical mega menu, right? And you'll see that this My Aadhaar from the information architecture, this was the key thing that we wanted to focus on. But when you work in a mobile device, this menu is going to be practically useless. It's going to be a lot of information. So what we basically did is that we actually extended Joomla's menu system so that when you click on the top menu of My Aadhaar, the landing page that opens up is actually the sub menu. It's presented differently. So every menu item got a description field and a highlight field. So this is actually coming from this menu. This menu has This menu item has a highlight, it has an additional description, and this is actually the sub menu of it. So if you look at this, these are actually so get Aadhaar is one section in it, update your Aadhaar is the second section in it. So this entire landing page is actually a module that is actually rendering the menu in a very different way. So the entire landing page is actually dynamic. There is nothing getting updated here manually. It's just a different representation of the menu. All the content that you see here is actually managed inside Joomla menus, everything that you see below this. So this was a unique innovation here, because what we wanted to do is, because it was 17 languages, this menu is also, with the way Joomla works is that you have to create an English language menu and one menu in each language, right? The same went for the landing pages. So what we wanted to ensure is that the content management was simple. If they change something in one place, even for the landing pages, it should not mean that they have to do it in multiple places. So we found that this was the most efficient, because when you look at this on a mobile device, you will see that this scales really well. So this on a mobile device becomes your menu. So this was a key innovation that we wanted to make sure that we make it easier for content updates to reflect quickly. So this information architecture actually led to us designing the CMS architecture in such a way that it became simple for things to be managed. The other thing that had to be done is that not everything on the menu had to be shown on the landing page. Yes, I see there is a question, was that a custom module? So yes, that was a completely custom built module, a custom layout that actually renders. So it was like a custom layout of a menu module. It's still a menu, but it actually comes up dynamically depending on which menu you're on. And another key thing was that you'll see that the menu actually can get really busy, right? And we only wanted to show key things out of that menu on the landing page. If you look at this, there are quite a few menus here, but not everything. So if I go to, for example, about UIDAI. So we don't show every section on the landing page. We want to skip a few. So what we did there was that in order to be able to skip that, we basically gave the ability to feature. So this is actually the featured menu item, which would only show up on the home page. And this is not the standard Joomla featured. So we called it something else. This way, what you could do is that you could still have a menu which has 25 items, and the landing page that's driven from the menu is only showing you 15. So this green bit that you see, that was basically done using the ability to feature a section on the landing page. The next bit that was very interesting is that, as I said, when we got the website, it was having a humongous amount of custom extensions just to manage different content types. And the total number of content types was also pretty large. So there was everything from videos to press releases to testimonials. They also do a lot of updates, tenders, addendums, and whatnot. So all of that, we realized that there was no need for using any kind of a custom extension. We were able to actually get rid of all the Joomla custom extensions that were built and replace that with Joomla based custom fields, core custom fields, and custom layouts. So just as an example, I'll show you that. So if you look at this, I'll show you some content types that they have. If I go to the home page, you'll see down below that I have these modules. So here the menu is ending at this point. Now I have a few more modules, and these are all the standard latest news or latest content modules, but these are actually using custom fields and custom layouts. So this is actually the article title. What you see, the date, the source, these are custom fields, and this is a file download custom field. And this you can like scroll and see this. So this is one different layout. This is a case where this is a YouTube video. So the video could be anywhere. Again, this is a Joomla custom field layout. This is just an article actually. So you'll see that this is a custom layout. Again, there is a press release. This has a little different content architecture, a title, a logo, a date, and a download. So all of these are actually Joomla articles. A few more in the media section where they have a little bit more variety. So Aadhaar in print is, these are actually, so what they do is they scan the articles that come in newspapers and they actually set it up as images. And then this is set up. Telecast is videos, there is audio, press release I already showed you. Quote unquote is basically quotes. there are tenders. And so all of these are custom modules. So basically latest news modules with custom layouts. Now, the same thing when you actually get into, let's say, for example, there are tenders. So we also implemented some filter systems on top of Joomla's custom fields. So what you see here is actually a filter module that is again using core Joomla fields. So there is no external extension here doing that. It's just a simple module on top of it. So a lot of things were done here to kind of simplify things. Oh yeah, so we actually released some of these on our GitHub, the custom layouts and the custom filters. I'll check where they are and I'll tweet about it later. So we are actually blogging about this website quite a bit, and we will be releasing a lot of these layouts after removing all the UI that is specific to the client. They are very much so this was all open source code, so it's absolutely shareable. So getting back to the presentation, so this is a before and after. This, what you see on the left here, this is the website as it looked on mobile before we revamped it. This is the new website. I showed you the working version on mobile, and these are some stats on the before and after. So there were 10 plus custom extensions. We got that down to 0 custom extensions, just custom fields. There were 12 templates that was brought down to 1 template. That also includes RTL. Urdu is a so one of the languages in India is Urdu, which is right to left. So that was also implemented. There's a lot of messy content duplication that was brought down to 0. Content updates were a mess because the way they were managing content earlier, they probably had to update things in 3 different places. And they are really happy now because they can update it once and it just flows everywhere automatically. Then, of course, the super complex components. So that's the point. The content updation became really, really simple. So this is just a quick look at the website, how it stands now. And there are some additional cool fields that they had a lot of management of FAQs, which was specific to area. So we did related articles field, which let them associate FAQs with the right sections so that the FAQs would always flow correctly to the right place. So depending on where I am, if there was any related content, that shows up automatically. So there is no need to manage things, without actually getting into manual assignment of modules or anything like that. So you don't have a situation where you're creating modules and assigning to pages. And in the multilingual side, that's not recommended because, like I said, it's 17 languages here. So if I create a module that's specific to a language, I'll have to actually create 17 copies of it. So in order to, I think, leverage Joomla's multilingual without things letting things get complex, you can do some creative things to make sure that it doesn't end up getting super complex. Because in Joomla, multilingual is like multi-sites. You assign stuff to the language, right? But if you make it dynamic, where the content can change based on the language, and then you reduce the amount of duplication that you need to do, you can keep things pretty simple. Next up, the performance bit. So originally the website was getting hosted on 8 servers. So you can imagine the amount of, so a lot of this is static, so it gets cached really heavily. There's a lot that we've also done on the performance optimization. I'm not going to cover that in detail, but we are actually blogging with detailed case studies on that very soon, where you can actually delve deep into it. But there's been everything that you can do to optimize done, because with those kind of hits, we wanted to see if we could reduce the resources required to serve such a website. I think at peak load, the earlier version needed 8 parallel servers to serve it. We were able to get it down to 6 servers, and ideally it was running at 4, but they try to keep it safe because they can get really huge spikes. So the production version runs on 6 servers. So that's just a little bit of a background. So here, what we wanted to show through this is that this is not unique for Joomla. It's a website, nothing really special in that sense, but some creative use of the CMS. And the important part here is scale. 17 languages, 50 million hits a month. We feel it's a good showcase for Joomla. And if there's anybody out there that says Joomla can't handle complex websites, you just need to show them this. So that was Aadhaar, India's government initiative for unique identification. That's the Joomla website that I just shown. Next up, something very, very different. Again, a little bit of India here. So this is a unique one. This is Joomla powering an agricultural warehouse, a cold storage chain in India, and driving up farmer profit. So now here we are going as far away from a website as we can. So now I'll try to speed things up. We have quite a few things to cover, so I'll try and make things a little faster from here. But this is where the interesting thing starts. So a lot of times Joomla is considered as a content management system, but traditionally we have used it to do a lot more. We have used it more like a framework. And when you use it like that, there is so much in there that can help you build some amazing applications. And this is probably one of the most unique ones we have built. Not super high tech, but for the business it serves, it's game changing. It's a complete transformation. So the background here is that this is a customer in a village in India. Actually, they have these big grain warehouses, and we engaged with them the first time 9 years back. And the first system that was built for them was in Joomla 1.5. The challenges that they were facing was so what these guys do is that they actually have three types of businesses that they run in the warehouse. One is typical: the farmer comes in, they leave their stock in there, they pay the rent for the storage of the grain. The second case is that the farmer can come in, they can choose to sell their grain to the warehouse. And the third case is very interesting, where the farmer can come in and store the grain, but take a loan or an advance against the grain. And these were the three businesses we are trying to transform digitally. They were literally using books to manage all this, books of accounts. There was not even an Excel inside when we actually came in here. So there were some really interesting digital transformation scenarios here, and this was a leapfrog situation where we had to get them from a notebook to something completely cloud based. So these were some of the challenges they had. They could not accurately forecast demand, managing the crop rate. So they were managing multiple types of crops. Managing rates was really hard. It was hard to communicate with their customers who were farmers. There was no way to easily access farmer details and find any selling patterns to avoid fraud. Crop rates were they didn't have data to decide the crop rates. It was all market driven, and it wasn't as demand driven as it should have been, because data was always out of sync. They were doing overstocking. There was no stock management. Tracking the produce was hard. The entire logistics process in this that is involved, from getting the grain in to getting it out, it needed heavy optimization. So from a solution perspective, what we did was we actually created a crop management system for them with a rate manager where they could actually manage their daily rates. Another interesting feature that was done for them is that whenever the rate of a crop changed, the farmer holding that grain gets a text update or an SMS update, which tells them what the rate is today. There is a complete farmer know your customer or KYC system with data analytics, which now tells them about selling patterns, demographic data, seasonal patterns. This helps them forecast the rates better. This helps them prevent fraud. We have also automated the weighing process. So I don't have the pictures here, but if you can imagine how this works, is that a truck rolls in with sacks of grain in it. It actually rolls on top of a weigh bridge. So imagine a weighing scale that's like maybe as big as a room. The truck actually rolls on top of the weighing bridge, and they take the weight of the truck with the grain filled in, and then again they take the weight without it, and that's how the weight of the grain is calculated. So this was completely automated. So we actually hooked up the weigh bridge, which actually connected via COM port to a computer, to the cloud-based Joomla application, so that the weighing could automatically flow into the system. Grain purchase module was built. So this is like a full agricultural ERP where if the farmer chooses to sell the grain, they can basically just get a bill right away, get paid for it. A complete loans and advances module was built on it as well. So these are just some views from the system. So we are actually now revamping it to Joomla 4 directly, because there was no point in upgrading them. This was on an internal network. They were using Joomla 1.5 for all these years without any problems. And they have scaled like 5 times since we actually reached out to them in the first place. So now they're on Joomla 3.9 really, with 4 compatibility. And these are just some screens from the system. So it's like a full-blown ERP. Now, it not only manages their grain, but it's also managing their cold storage, where they are storing potatoes and apples and things like that. So these are just some quick stats. When we started out 9 years back with them, the storage capacity was 20,000 metric tons. They were doing a daily turnover of $160,000. That's US dollars. It was a single location with multiple warehouses, and they were running these three businesses. Like I said, renting, buying and selling, and loans against the stored material. Today, they have scaled to multiple locations. It's the same system. We have scaled with them to allow them to support multiple locations. They also have cold storage warehousing where the containerization and structure of the content storage changes a little bit. And the capacity and turnovers have increased multifold. And Joomla has been able to scale with that. So this is a very different kind of a case. So a complete business operations digitization using Joomla here. So benefits of this, obviously you can realize that now the granary can operate with a handful of staff. They can do fraud reduction. They can completely monitor the system from wherever they are. We send daily automated reports to the business owners, and the SMS updates have actually helped the farmers reap great profits. So these guys came in the media because the farmers could get a lot of profits from this. So this is actually a real chart of the rates that have increased that the farmers get. So this is a chart, this is an old chart, but you can see that the seasonal fluctuations are showing up in the rates of the grain. So the farmers could get these updates and decide when to hold on to the grain and sell, thus helping them, kind of get more benefits and more profits from their produce. So this is the typical process. Again, as I said, I'll share this presentation where you can see more details. So that's how it happens. The farmer comes in, the farmer KYC is done. We take a photo. It's like a attendance or inward system. The grain weighing happens and inward entry happens. And depending on which module they're going for, whether it's a purchase or a rental or a loan, they are actually taken through different processes. The total system, I think they have like 5 computer terminals in their warehouse where the entire process is digitized and it runs off Joomla. So another very interesting case, so I'm not covering the 3 cases that I'm actually talking about here. This is what we've done so far, but I'll only be talking about one. So this is Joomla with Internet of Things or Joomla with IoT. So one thing that we built was a lighting control management system. So this is for really large buildings where they want to manage their lighting. They want to manage how many bulbs they have, how many lighting systems they have, which floor they're on. They want to automate based on sensors. So here we use Joomla to build a middleware. We also built a power management or power monitoring system. So there is this interesting project that's happening, which they are trying to control and monitor the quality of power. And the system is based off Joomla. And another very interesting use case where a jello shot maker IoT-based device is using Joomla on the back end to automate its refilling and also showing ads while your jello shot gets created. So very different use cases. Right now, I'm only talking about lighting control system. So what a lighting control system does is that it lets you do device management, device grouping, scheduling, manufacturer management, user management, access control, reporting, all of that. So the whole idea is that when it's a big premise like a big hotel or a university, it can get really hard to keep control of your inventory and keep and manage all the lighting control that you need to do. So this is where a lighting control management system comes into play. So this is how it was built. This is a really simplified architecture. So the front end was a HTML5 based browser UI. The application and web services, the middleware was built on Joomla, and the actual gateways were IoT devices which were actually controlling things on the ground. So this middleware was what got built in Joomla, and this is the Joomla framework. Here we didn't use the Joomla CMS. It was the framework. So this is for the techies in you. This is a little bit of a little detailed view of that. So this is actually the cloud hosted web server, which actually handles the web services. And this is a LAMP stack, which I'll see as backend, which is baked on the Joomla framework. So I won't go more into details on this, but again, a very different use case of Joomla and IoT getting used. And we are doing quite a few of these nowadays. So different kind of a use case. And Joomla works well as long as you use it for the right things in there. So this is actually a sample of the UI. of the dashboard. So think of it like you have a router OS which controls your Wi-Fi network. This is like a lighting OS that controls your devices. So finally, coming to the fourth case. So this was actually a very interesting thing where we used the Joomla CMS, but what we did is that we purely did APIs on this, and we built a system for basically powering a logistics marketplace where truck drivers. So basically, in the UK, there are a lot of companies that own the trucks, and then they will source the actual driving to freelance drivers. For them, it's very important to monitor the driving quality so that the insurance and claims and everything becomes easier. So we built a mobile application which was built in Xamarin with a Joomla-based backend. And the workflow of this, the way it works is that they float a job on the jobs portal. So this is an example of the interface. So here, the Joomla backend, we actually didn't use any of the Joomla UI at all. So it was purely a web service in Joomla. And even the front end, the web front end was built in Angular, and the mobile front end was built in Xamarin. So the way the workflow for this works is that basically when they need something moved from place A to place B, they can actually create a work order for it. The most matching drivers are shown, and once the matching happens, the driver can actually take the trip. And in the mobile UI for that, the driver can actually start the trip. This is geofence lock-in. He can only start the trip from the starting place. He is actually given signals to stop at the right time. They have to stop every 2 or 3 hours. He has to do a pre-start lorry examination. All of that is managed in the mobile device. And we use some APIs here from a company called as Here to actually do driving quality monitoring to find out if he was overspeeding, did he brake too hard, and things like that. And all those stats are actually pushed back to Joomla. So again, a very different kind of an application built using Joomla. This is the final case that I have. We have quite a few more, but we were short on time, so we didn't really get into a lot of those. Here, I haven't made any slides. I'm just going to explain it. So this was a client who wanted to build a SaaS-based product, and his idea was that he wanted to speed up recruitment by basically creating something that could do asynchronous interviews. So the way this works is that typically a problem that happens in an interview is that both the interviewee and the interviewer have to be present at the same place. And usually the person interviewing is somebody important and has very less time. So the idea was that could we create a product where you could actually pre-create the interview, send it to 1,000 people. They could answer the interview in their own sweet time, and then the interviewee could see, in his own sweet time. So the idea was kind of break up the requirement of having both of them together. So we built a system on top of Joomla, and we used Wowza media server as a backend. An entire process was built where you could import your candidates, you could send them a test. The people who passed the test, you could take them through an interview. The interviewer could record video questions. They could be 5 questions, 10 questions, or he could choose to pick them from a bank of ready questions, create the interview and send it to the next batch of, let's say the 50 shortlisted people. They could come in, record their responses, and then the interviewer could view the responses, which were again video, and then evaluate and select the candidate. So again, completely built with Joomla. Also has a web and mobile front end. I don't have screenshots to show because we have an NDA there where we can't actually show the UI. But again, a very different use case with Joomla. So this was the last one from me. There's quite a few more, as I said. Keep following our blog on Tech Joomla. We are blogging about the cool things we do with Joomla quite a bit. You can read more about that there. So Steve, we can stop at this point to take questions if we have any.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Parth. We do have a question, which is, I think, referring back to one of the earlier sites. Did you use COM content for different content types? And did you enhance COM content? Or did you create your own component from scratch to manage all the different types of content?
Yeah, so I guess that was about the Aadhaar UIDAI website. So this was core COM content with custom fields. There was no hacking or modifications done to the Joomla core. We did not do a custom extension at all. What we did do was that we created special layouts. So if you know, when you create if in a Joomla module, you can choose a custom layout. we created some 10 different types of layout to show these different visuals, right? So you'll see this is a different one and this is a different one. But these are all articles with Joomla custom fields. So that's how it works.
Okay, we have a question from Wolfgang, who is pretty much reading my mind in terms of questions. Have you had chance to assess the JSON API that is coming with Joomla 4? Is it as mature as your product, COM API? Will you move to the new core API in Joomla 4, or will you stick to your implementation?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question. And a lot of our customers do ask that question. So the way it stands now, it's not as mature as COM API, and not does it have the coverage. But we do hope that by the time Joomla 4.1 or 4.2 comes, we will be able to retire COM API. And the plan is that we will keep maintaining COM API till the Joomla 4 core gets mature. And once it does, what we do plan to do is have some kind of migration path for our existing customers, which will probably be and again, we can't really say how easy or hard that would be till we actually can study all the APIs that are going to come out in Joomla 4. But right now, the plan is to keep maintaining COM API because we have production customers on it. They use them, both our existing Tech Joomla customers as well as a lot of people are using COM API in production. So we will keep maintaining it for as long as we need to and improving it. So in fact, we have a major refactor coming soon, and we are releasing quite a few new plugins as well. So you can keep using it as long as you need to. Till Joomla 4, matches the capabilities, we will keep maintaining it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Parth. So that was a wonderful presentation introducing us to some really large websites and projects being built by Parth's team in India. This is just the first of well over 20 presentations we're going to have at the Joomla Shack conference this week. We're going to follow up in about 15 minutes with Parth's partner Ashwin, who is talking about building modern front ends for Joomla with AngularJS. And then also we have presentations on project management, on page builders, and also using Joomla to generate static sites. Thank you guys so much for coming to this first presentation, and I hope you'll join us later today and later this week for more Joomla presentations.